Alright, guys, I want to go ahead and talk about the upcoming changes for Charm. Okay, so I am so glad they are sticking with a long held tradition, right? And Carrier is a great example of what they're doing now, and it's exactly what I was hoping they were going to do. Okay, so many of you guys probably have no idea why Carrier has the name Carrier. Okay, that is because this mod that we're looking at right here used to be only for the Carrier. That's why it was called the Carrier, because it would pick up, everything that drops and it would carry it for you, right? And keep in mind also, when Carrier first came out, the feature of having a vacuum was only available with Carrier. That was the only way to get it. Okay? So if you wanted to have any kind of vacuum at all, you needed to have a Carrier. And also, there was no M8 vacuum like we have now either, right? So now we have, I think, like 3 meters of a vacuum, right? That's always on your Warframe no matter what. Back in the day, we didn't have that, and the only way to get vacuum was to use the Carrier. And so, as you can imagine, after a while, it got to a point to where we weren't using any other companion at all. It was Carrier or nothing, right? And if you had to bring a different companion to level it up or whatever else, like, you just felt like you were missing out on an incredible feature, right? Because you didn't have the vacuum anymore. Now you had to constantly run over, and pick up this item. You had to run over and pick up that item. When you had the Carrier, it would just automatically do all that for you. So that created a huge imbalance, right? So what they did was they said, okay, all of the Sentinels can now have vacuum. It would just make it a mod that they all can equip, right? And then I'm sure some of you guys might be aware, of course, the newer ones won't be aware of this at all. After a while, they wanted to expand that even further to then allow all of the beasts to also equip a similar mod, right? So I think you might be starting to see where I'm going with this. Okay, so the Lucky Catch mod, I think that's what they're going to call it, is going to be for the beasts, right? But I'm thinking eventually it might get expanded even further and go into Sentinels, right? So where Sentinels could have a similar mod to where Sentinels could then start, doubling some of your resources, right? So I think it is a great change. It's exactly what I was hoping they were going to do. And I'm wondering if there's going to be like patch history in here that might go ahead and confirm some of the information I just told you guys. So we could see it right here. Update 10.0 introduced as a unique Carrier preset. So it looks like that was in 2013. So that was pretty much like right at the beginning of the game, it looks like. And there's a bit of nostalgia for the veterans. Fixed stamina orbs in the dojo becoming vacuumed up for eternity. So Many of you guys probably have no idea, but Warframe used to have a stamina bar. So sprinting, climbing walls, wall dashes, all that stuff, it all used stamina, right? And once you ran out of stamina, you couldn't do that stuff anymore. So you had to come back down to the floor, let it rebuild, and then you could start trying to climb again, right? So, yeah, I mean, there is so much of this game that is improved that, you know, the newer players, like, it is true, they are getting, like, a more refined version of Warframe, but the nostalgia is what they're kind of missing out on because they haven't seen it in its early days. There's a lot of videos on YouTube of, like, in the beginning era of Warframe, and I strongly suggest going and watching that just so you can see, like, where it's come from. Now, I started playing the game in 2013. It wasn't like right at the beginning, but it was, somewhat in that era, right? And so I can definitely give you guys a lot of information about the history of the game, and I've been playing it off and on for years. Okay, and I'm now, like, pretty much at the end of the game, right? So I don't have a lot of things that I'm still needing to do. Like, it's pretty much all done. Okay, I'm now at the point to where whenever an update comes out, I just farm up all the new stuff and then I'm done. Like, I don't have, a long list or anything like that of stuff I need to get and level up. That's all done. And I remember having a stamina bar, but I didn't remember the stamina orbs. So that just goes to show you, like, how long ago that system has been in the game. Okay, it has been a long time since we had that stuff. So there you can see the fetch. Again, that was to, you know, get people to start using the beasts more often, right? Because we always wanted to use the sentinels because sentinels had the vacuum and beasts didn't. So it was like, if you're using, a dog or a cat or whatever else, it was like, well, they don't have the vacuum. So I want to go back to that, right, to a sentinel so I can have that vacuum again. And the basic point that I want to make here, my word of advice to the devs, in the future, if you're creating a feature or a mod or something, right, or a different companion or whatever it might be, if you're creating something that you know is going to create a huge imbalance, right, where everyone's going to want that new thing so they can have that new feature all the time, then, like, instead of making that proprietary to that specific companion or, weapon or whatever else, like, just make that a mod that can be equipped on everything, right? Like, that's what we're really wanting to get at the end of the day. But either way, I'm so glad they're going in the right direction and not going backwards. Like what was originally thought they were going to do is they were going to say, we don't like, the doubling of resources, so we're just going to remove that entirely. Okay, so you're just not going to have that anymore. And I thought, there's no possible way that's what they're doing, right? On another note, I had put in the forums a suggestion about favorites, right? That was several months ago, I think it was. Alright, guys, so as you can see, this is a post I made And of course, I just noticed I have a typo in here.
Alright, move on! Nothing to see here! Please disperse! Nothing to see here, please!
So just go ahead and ignore that part. Okay, don't worry about that. So basically, what I was talking about here was having different tabs for your relics, right? So you could have like different ones for like, contains unowned parts, right? Or to take it a step further, another tab could be contains less than two parts owned, right? So just in case, like if you were to run a lot of fissures, right, and you ended up acquiring every single prime item in the game, you would then, start to work on having multiple sets of every single thing, right? So then you would want to go to that tab, right? Which would be a tab called, less than two items owned, right? And then, to take it even a step further, maybe you could have that tab where you could mark that tab as a favorite, right? So then that tab would be first, when your relic selection screen, right? So then you'd go that tab first, and then you could have, hopefully your relics are going to be able to add favorites to it, right? That was the basic premise of it, was to be able to take a relic you want, right, and add it as a favorite. Find several other relics. Okay, these relics have parts I need. I'm going to add those as favorites as well. And that way I can just go run a whole bunch of missions, and I know, all those relics I'm wanting to run, those are all going to be at the top. Here was another important thing that I pointed out. I think vaulted relics should look a lot different. So they should have, maybe like a platinum color to them. So the relic itself, I think, should stand out amongst all the others, right? Whether they're like back in the rotation or not, they're still a vaulted relic, and they should have a platinum color to it. That's what I think. Or maybe a gold color, or however they might want to do it. I think a platinum color, like just to show the significance of that, especially for newer players, because they're probably going to be seeing, common drops all the time that are coming from vaulted relics, but they don't know that there's anything special there, right? So they're just going and picking, all the other stuff when they should be picking the vaulted drops no matter what, because those are a lot harder to get. And maybe even a vaulted tag underneath of the drop, right? Whenever the reward selection screen comes up, if something dropped for a vaulted relic, then it should say vaulted under that part. That way, so they know, like, that's important. You need to get that. Okay. And then maybe once they start seeing that vaulted tag come up, then maybe they'll start asking around and say, hey, what's up with this vaulted thing, right? Why does it say vaulted on certain parts? Then they could start learning more about the game instead of just going through and not knowing anything about that system. Just in case you guys might be interested, that's the name of my reaction channel right there. Reactions with Will. So, alright, that's it for now, y'all.